has started.
Thank you. So welcome everybody. It is October 11th, 2023, about 2:05 p.m. For our monthly towing task force meeting. My name is Nate Riley. I'm one of the members here, and we'll go ahead and get started. So we'll go ahead and start with the roll call. So we'll go ahead and start with John Connolly.
I'm here.
Thank you. Thank you. Captain Hahn.
Here.
Thank you. Jim House.
I'm here.
Thank you. Michael Pierce. Do not see him yet. Officer Prunski. Do not see him yet either. Brandon Rich.
Here.
Thanks. Jeffrey Reister. I think he let us know earlier he was going to be attending, but he may be showing up a little bit late. So we'll see when he comes in. Nathan Riley, that's myself. I am present. And finally, Joanne Rusha. Do not see her yet either. All right. So let's see. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It looks like 5 members on as of right now. That's not quite a quorum. So we'll see who else shows up and if we have a quorum to make any big decisions or at least approve the minutes from last month. So we'll see who else shows up as we proceed forward. Just going on to the agenda, just a couple administrative items to discuss. Unfortunately, between our last meeting and now, we had another resignation coming in from Nicole Bailey. She was our member who represented common interest communities, so HOAs and things like that. So that's another position we're going to have to backfill. Another thing, I know some of us have had our terms are coming up because we were all basically the entire task force as it stood at the beginning of last year. Almost everybody got appointed at the same time, more or less. And so some of the positions were designated by the governor's office as 2-year terms as opposed to 4-year terms. So that being the case, there are some that are expiring in December of this year. So in just a couple months here. I believe people on our side, kind of on the administrative side, have been dealing with the executive director's office and the governor's office to figure out exactly what to do about that. It looks like some of the members may end up being reappointed, or we may have some new members coming in, depending on what the governor's office wants to do. But we are working on that in addition to backfilling some of the positions that we've seen vacated over the last 6 months or so. So we'll all kind of stay tuned for that. People from our department may be reaching out to you if your term is going to be expiring, just to first off gauge your interest in continuing to participate in the task force, or whatever alternatives may be available. So if somebody reaches out to you, that's what it's about. Let's see. I think that's all the administrative items that I have for now. Let's see. I see our attorney, John Roberts, is here. Welcome, as well as Hadija is here as well from the PUC team to assist with administrative things associated with the task force. So she's present as well. Don't see any public commenters in the meeting right now. Hadija, do we have anybody sign up?
Unfortunately, not for this meeting.
Okay, well, we'll see if somebody comes in. We'll give them the time if they elect to participate. Okay, so I think that gives us, or at least that takes care of all the initial discussion points. So moving on to discussion, one of the items I put on the agenda, which was circulated to y'all either a week or two ago, I thought it would be good to kind of continue our discussion. We kind of started to open a little bit of a can of worms in our last meeting in regards to other states and what they're doing in regards to towing regulation. I know certain members had indicated a desire to kind of do a little bit of independent research in some of those areas. I know myself, I did some things as well between our last meeting and now, which I'm happy to share. in regards to, what some other states are doing. I know Michael Pierce had voiced some support for exploring that to at least to a certain extent, in regards to us, coming up with other potential ideas or concepts that could be explored here in Colorado. Let's see. So I had a few things I was going to share. Let me just get there real quick. So one of the things I did recently was, and this is something I know I discussed in our last meeting, which was, reaching out to other states on an unrelated, legislative topic. And so as part of that exercise, this was back in, I think, July or maybe even some part of June, I had reached out to several different states, about 12 or so different states that were, at least at face value, appeared to have some regulations and kind of some towing oversight aspects that were in some ways similar to what we have here in Colorado. I don't think there's any state that I've reached out to that I've discussed these topics with that has anything that's, I would say, even very close to ours. But there are some similarities across the board, in regards to, how vehicles that have been non-consensually towed, are subsequently sold to recoup fees, things like that. So, but in general, everybody does do it pretty differently. One also uniformity that I'm seeing is consensual tows not being regulated. That's something that seems to be pretty consistent across all the states I reached out to. But anyway, as between our last meeting and now, I've had some additional discussions with some of these other states just to kind of get a feel for, some of the more specific things related to, their tow regulation, including how they do their rates, how they set their rates, what types of tows have set rates, what types of charges they assess, things of that nature. So here's what I discovered. So in Arkansas, they don't really have capped rates. The only thing that is somewhat capped is law enforcement ordered tows, but even that's done at like the contract or law enforcement agency level. It's not something that they do for other types of rates. So non-consensual, consensual, it's only law enforcement order has any kind of fee setting exercise attached to it. And even that is not even done by the state. It's done by the individual law enforcement agencies. I think that's pretty consistent with the way things were here in Colorado prior to about 2015. So we obviously set them at the state level now, but it wasn't always that way. And it wasn't like that for a long time, actually, prior to that. Let's see. For Georgia, and again, that's regulated by the Georgia Department of Public Safety. They do set their rates, but it's mostly relegated to non-consensual tows. I think they said law enforcement order tows are not really regulated in that way. But they have set rates based on something similar to what we have here, where it's based on the GVWR of the towed vehicle. So here in Colorado, it's our fees are essentially, for most types of charges, are broken out into different tiers based on the size of the towed vehicle. So for, GVWR 10,000 or less, it's a certain rate, or, but 10,001 pounds to like 19,000 pounds is another rate. And then 19,000 pounds to, and it keeps scaling up based on how large and how heavy the vehicle is that's being towed, which I think kind of corresponds to the size and therefore expense of the vehicle needed to tow it. So that's, I think, why we've structured it that way. And that was based on the Utah study that was done back in, 2015 year. So, but anyway, in Georgia, they have something similar where it's 10,000 GVWR or less for a non-consensual tow is $175. So it's a little less than we have here, but it's a similar structure. $300 for 10,001 to 20,000, and then $450 for 20,001 plus. And then they have a separate category for in combination tractor trailers, which is $850. So again, it's pretty similar to what we have here. The prices don't exactly match, but it's actually quite similar, which was a little surprising. They started that program where they were setting non-consensual towing rates back in 2002. The lady I spoke with over there didn't understand exactly how those initial fees were set, but did indicate that it's changed a couple times over the years. So she said it changed. So they were set initially in 2002. They changed it in 2014 and then again in 2017. And they mentioned that the towing industry is pushing for another change. So it sounds kind of like how we handled things before, because they actually have to submit requests to change the rates to the Georgia Department of Public Safety Board of Directors, and they have to approve it. So it sounds kind of similar to what we did here prior to implementing the inflation adjustment provision a couple years ago. So it's interesting. Moving on to Illinois, they actually also regulate the rates for non-consensual towing. It's tied though to law enforcement ordered tows, which I thought was interesting. So their rate setting process is typically done by analyzing, according to them, analyzing the 3 highest police ordered tows, and then essentially, I guess, averaging those in some way, and then setting kind of an across the board rate for all non-consensual towing, which I thought was kind of an interesting way to do it. Apparently these individual companies can still file petitions for a rate increase, which then goes before the Illinois Commerce Commission, which is the regulatory authority there. But they did mention that currently the rates are somewhere between $216 and $238 for a light duty hook, which is up to 8,000 GVWR, not 10. They have it at 8 out there. They said it's $520 for a medium duty, which is 8,001 pounds to 26,000 GVWR, and then $700 for a heavy duty, which is 26,001 plus GVWR. They also have regulate storage fees, which they do it at $40 to $45 per day, which is almost exactly what we have here. But that's for light duty, and then it jumps all the way up to $140 a day for both the medium and heavy duty categories. So I actually thought it was interesting that the jump was that high between those two categories, especially considering medium and heavy are in the same upper tier category. So I thought that was interesting. They also allow for a $250 invoice fee. And then lastly, there's no real other fees allowed. And they specifically mentioned, which I wish Joyanne Rucha was here because I think she'd get a kick out of this, but they don't have after hours fees there. Basically the expectation, at least in Illinois, is that if a towing carrier is towing 24/7, then they should be expected to facilitate releases 24/7 as well. So anyway, that's how they look at it out there in Illinois. Consensual towing, not really regulated, but they do have to disclose their fees in writing prior to the tow. We have something similar here, but verbal disclosures are also sufficient per PUC rule. And then law enforcement order tows are regulated by the individual departments. Moving on to Louisiana. Oh, actually, you know what? I didn't get a call back from them. Didn't get a call back from Massachusetts either. I did speak to the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission, which is kind of our equivalent in New Mexico. They indicated that a lot of their towers operate off of what they call New Mexico wrecker tariffs. So those are things that the towing carriers will file, but only for non-consensual and law enforcement ordered tows. Consensual towing rates are not really regulated. Again, that was pretty consistent across the board. Both the non-consensual and law enforcement ordered tows are considered non-consensual per their own definitions. So it's similar to what we had here prior to the legislation last year, where you kind of lump law enforcement ordered and non-consensual PPIs into a single category. So what it does mean though is that the rates are the same in New Mexico. So law enforcement, PPI, doesn't matter, they charge the same. They said they allow charges for a lot of different equipment, but the basic rate, so I assume hook fee would start around $200 and go up from there. So somewhat equivalent to what we have here. But it does scale up depending on the weight classes. They divide them up a little differently into lettered categories. So it's A, B, C, or D. I think A and B, they said, are considered more non-CMV vehicles, whereas the C and D categories are considered more CMV level vehicles. And then they also have considerations for larger transport vehicles like, dealership transporters, things like that, which have higher rates. They indicated that about 98% of towing carriers follow these New Mexico record tariffs, but that individual carriers can still file kind of their own standalone tariffs, but they have to have those approved by the commission, similar to kind of what we would have here. But it's a little different. It's kind of how we would deal with tariffs for passenger carriers, like CPCNs. We don't really do it for towing carriers. So. Let's see. Oklahoma. So they do have rate setting, which is done by the Oklahoma Corporation Commission. Haven't gotten any information from them yet, but the Department of Public Safety provided me with a little bit of other information, but I don't think it's anything related to what we would discuss here. And then didn't hear back from Texas either. So that's kind of what I found out. So some interesting concepts out there. But there's some similarities, but also some significant differences kind of to how we do it in Colorado and just amongst the different states that I actually got responses from. So I don't know. I don't know that there's any real industry standard for regulations, across the various states. Colorado is going to be as different from Arkansas as it is from, Louisiana or Kansas or wherever. Every state kind of does their own thing for the most part. There's similarities, and it does look like, a lot of other states are using, these GVWR tiered rate systems, which is what we have here. But when it boils down to, sorry, we got somebody coming in. But when it boils down to, what those rates actually are, it sounds like each state is probably determining that in their own ways. So, maybe they're giving weight to different considerations. Maybe they factor in, things, they more heavily factor in things like insurance costs, whereas another state may factor in things like vehicle costs or, impact to the consumer that might weigh heavy in other places as well. So doesn't seem like there's any kind of set formula for that per se, but it is something to be aware of, I suppose. Anyway, so that's what I found. I don't know if anybody else has anything to share kind of on this topic about other states and what they may or may not be doing. Anybody else have any thoughts on any of this? Okay. So, I mean, I'll continue to reach out to other states and get a feel for the types of things they're doing. I'm sure Mr. Conley remembers, what the information we got from Utah back in 2015 did a lot to shape the way that the PUC currently regulates rates for towing carriers. Both at the non-consensual level as well as the law enforcement ordered tow level. It's, a lot of it was based on, the information we got from Utah. So I definitely think it can be a helpful exercise to, explore what other states are doing and, see if they have any good ideas that we could kind of incorporate to what we're doing here. I saw a hand raised a moment ago from someone who just joined our meeting. Something you'd care to say? And if you could identify yourself before you speak, I'd appreciate that. Looks like you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Sure can. Go ahead, sir. Who are you, please?
My name is William Johnson.
Hi.
And I'm just a consumer, and I have a vehicle that's been towed,
Mhm.
and I have a situation going on. I think all of you will be surprised, but these people are trying to keep my truck illegally. You know, I caught them red-handed. I have all these conversations recorded, and basically, you know, I got a call from the Estes Park Police Department saying that a vehicle of mine has been towed. It was involved in a crime and it was towed up there. And I can come and get the vehicle now. They know I had nothing to do with it. And all I need to do is come in with the registration and pick the vehicle up. And so I arranged with Detective Jen Mora at the Estes Park Police Department to come pick the vehicle up. And now the situation with the vehicle is I buy cars from Copart. I'm kind of disabled, and that's the way I earn my living. I buy slightly damaged cars from Copart, put them together, and sometimes make a small profit or whatever. This particular vehicle was a 2007 Mercedes-Benz GL 450, a very nice looking luxury SUV. It ran perfect. It was black. I used to rent it out, kind of like on Turo or whatever. So it's in my company's name, Scotty's Home Improvement. I also do home improvements and odd jobs or whatever. But I buy all my cars from the auction, Copart. Fix them and sell them, and they're under my company name, Scotty's Home Improvement, and my name, William Johnson. Well, I have it all on tape. After I agreed to come pick the vehicle up, what happened is I had halfway sold the vehicle to somebody, and before they finished paying for the car and getting the proper paperwork done, they let somebody else get it who apparently did this crime. Well, sometimes, you know, in the car business, you get a car that comes back, you know, for whatever reason, if it's not titled properly or the people didn't, whatever. This was one of those situations. So in between me agreeing with her to come pick up the vehicle, we get off the phone. Everything was great, and it was arranged I'd come and have it towed to Denver, which would cost about $1,000, and it had no keys anymore, which would probably cost about $1,000. And I explained to her my situation. You know, I'm not working no more. I can't fix cars, and you know, this is a great thing for me right now. I actually just got rear-ended by the police, and I'm going through a lawsuit with them. I just informed her of this. It's the reason why I'm telling you all, and it's the truth. So I can't come get the vehicle myself, but I'll send all the required documents or whatever. 24 hours later, I get a message from her saying I can't get the truck. She made a mistake, and I have no right to get it anymore. And I told her that's not correct. You know, I've been through this before, and I don't know why you're doing this. And furthermore, I never got a notice in the mail, you know, that the car was even had been towed or whatever up there. She said she sent it back in July. I said, well, I never received it. And she said, I sent it in July, you never responded. So they applied for the title to the truck. And I said, this is ridiculous. Where did you send it to? You know, she said, this is very important. She said 333 Locust Street. And I said, well, that's the problem right there. I live on 3333, 43 Locust Street. Is that what you have? No, I have 333. I said, somebody sent it to the wrong address. I said, who made the mistake? Was it you? You know, and she said, well, I'm the one that sent it out. I said, where did you get the address from? She said, police databases, which I thought was a smart aleck remark, because the car is titled to Scotty's Home Improvement. she knows that, and you can believe that the Secretary of State has my correct address. And I told her, you know, I've been living here for 12 years and I know my mailman personally. I never got that. And so we went back and forth. I never cussed her out or anything. We have it on tape. And I told her that I should be able to come pick up the vehicle. And she said, well, her superior told her that I can't get the vehicle. So I got his information and she hung up on me. He called me a couple days later. The tone of his message that he left, I knew I shouldn't talk to this gentleman. I called the tow company and this guy says he's in Egypt. I can't get the car. He applied for the title a month ago. I abandoned the vehicle. I explained to him that it was sent to the wrong address. He basically said I can't get the car, hung up on me. A couple of days later, I get an official notice from the Estes Park Police Department with some other people down there, not this same detective. And it's saying Scotty's Home Improvement and William Johnson have a right to the vehicle, like I knew all along, and I can come pick up the vehicle. I have records of all this. I called the tow company. They wouldn't answer the phone. I emailed them. They wouldn't respond to me. I emailed them all the documents. And of course, I have a fresh registration and insurance and temp tags, you know, so I'm all ready to get the vehicle. He finally answers the phone. I keep calling. He answers the phone 2 weeks later and says that there's a hold on the truck now. Man, I just lost it, you know, because the whole time I'm knowing is ringing up costs. So I'm calling back and forth to Estes Park Police Department, and they did in fact verify that they had a hold on it. And I finally got a call from Detective Jen Moore, you know, and she told me that the hold has been lifted. I talked to the people at the tow place and they said now the truck is $3,100. And in the meantime, they're applying for the title because I didn't respond within the 30 days. I got that official letter the 16th of October. And she told me at that time that she's sending it to Bob's Towing, you know, so they've had this truck for over a year and they've done this to some other people. They never would let me get the truck. You know, every time I got a letter or something official from them, I diligently followed up. I have records of all this. So they just did this little trick to me that now I have to pay $3,100 and they can apply for the title, you know, because the title supersedes my registration at this point. And it's just totally unfair. And I can prove everything I'm saying. I have everything recorded because I knew from the very start that she had always intended to keep that vehicle. And she, from the very start, I'm talking about Detective Jen Moore, she wanted that vehicle. I have her on tape gushing about it. It is a beautiful black Mercedes truck. And she held on to it for a year, intentionally sent it to the wrong address. She intended to keep it for herself and or profit from it, and she made sure she did that. When I caught her that she sent it to a wrong address, I may have been sassing her, you know, I guess that's the way she would look at it, you know, it's the way I feel, and that's the way she treated it, you know. And she didn't apologize, or she wasn't surprised that it was sent to the wrong address, nor did she ever attempt to rectify it or say what my rights were. She still was maintaining, and she even said, oh, as far as I apologize for even trying to send you and calling you, even trying to send you the first one, and because you're not, I don't have no rights to the vehicle. And so naturally, she spent all this time covering her butt, and I'm pretty sure she probably entered some wrong information into the police database. I don't know what this whole situation is. Is there any documents of that? The guy won't send me a bill for these $3,100 of charges, and the whole time they keep maintaining I'm not getting the vehicle. And like I said, I responded by mail or email, and I have all the messages recorded because I knew they were going to pull something. I didn't know what, but they pulled this. And so right now they're applying for the title, and right now it's $3,400. And I would like, I think when the tow, I think that's a non-consensual tow. That's not a tow that the police normally would have made. I should have been able to pick up the vehicle like she said. The vehicle was there, but she never wanted me to get the vehicle. And the only reason why she called me is because they were complaining about the truck sitting there so long. She probably was forced to call just to do something on the truck. I'm surprised that she called me. And you can hear her, I have it all on tape. She was convincing me to not get the vehicle, and definitely convincing me when she called back that I had no rights to the vehicle. And I just, I simply know better. And I mean, the DMV gave me the paperwork to get it. And I never actually had the title. I had papers of acquisition that you get from Copart. Copart never had a title either. The insurance company gave it to them, and it was kind of a tricky deal because the car was sold on Copart in Denver, but it was at Copart auction in Hayward, California. So I actually bought that vehicle, paid all the fees, and had it shipped down here to Colorado. And the reason why I didn't immediately get a title for it is because the car has to be inspected by the California State Patrol and applied for a title in California. So that's the reason why I was just renting it to a gentleman. I had no idea that he was going to sell it, but I can see how, she can say that the title situation isn't real simple, but she sent the fake paperwork to me, or with the wrong address for a reason. That's because it's the law, and I was the person that it should have been sent to. But like she even said, she instead of looking it up at the Secretary of State that has my name, William Johnson, and my company name, Scotty's Home Improvement, and my address, instead of doing that, she did go to police databases. And she said that to be smart because I have an impressive criminal record that I'd love to talk about, because, all these injuries I talk about, are the police thinking I don't need to use my neck or back anymore. And, I just keep getting hurt. I never sue. I never say nothing. I go through all these racial incidents. That's why I taped this. I knew that she was going to bully me out of the vehicle. And she did that. And it's not fair. It's a non-consensual tow. She shouldn't have towed my truck after she told me I'd come get it, and I agreed to that. She didn't want, because she put too much time into that truck, keeping it there for a year, and she finally decides to send the paperwork. She was intending on keeping the truck. And if you look it up, this is what they do, and she's obviously making sure that this other gentleman with the tow company get paid. It's just totally unfair how they did all of this. And I have records of it. And I'd like some help from you all. I don't know what each one of you can do, but I understand this is being recorded, and I need to file a complaint. I don't know what to do at this point. You know what I'm saying? I certainly don't have the $3,100, but I had the $1,200, which are reasonable costs and what they told me from the beginning. But once again, they never would let me get the truck. And I have all these conversations recorded. It's absolutely ridiculous that what I went through. And I have no choice but to ask for help. I need legal help. I need financial help. And what the lady did was wrong, and what the gentleman did at the tow company is wrong. There's no way that it's legal what they did, and maybe she did it because maybe it is legal, and they know what they can get away with. And this is one of those situations, and it's not right. So I don't know what power you all have, but I'd like y'all recommendations and any help that you could give me, and I greatly appreciate y'all listening to me. Oh, I must say this, by the way, too. With all these situations that I've been through, I never say nothing. I'll tell you, I had 4 dispensaries at one time. Nobody, except for the one couple, there's no black people that had dispensaries. I had 4 licensed dispensaries at one time. I was systematically screwed out of each one. And when I went to court for it, they bought my lawyer out and some kind of way paid off the judge, Judge Haglin. I can prove this. And I'd like to say this, through that, when they screwed me out of my dispensaries and I proved that they were cheating me in court, Judge Haglin, and I proved it in court, Judge Haglin had the transcripts changed, cut out the parts where I caught them cheating. And I'm saying all this to say this, like, I've been through so much and I didn't sue them, I didn't complain or any of this. When they pulled this play, when they pulled this last trick on me, and I've had this same thing done to me before, but when they pulled this last trick on me and I could feel the dollars every day going up, 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 I basically had a heart attack and ended up in the hospital for 4 days. Just from stress, 5 days. I got out, I think it's 2 weeks ago. And so I've never had a heart problem or high blood pressure or any of that. My heart raced so fast you can hear me on the phone, and you can hear me, the conversations that I recorded, you could hear me actually lose it. And I started saying, man, I don't even feel healthy anymore. My heart was beating so fast that the part of your heart that pumps blood out couldn't pump it out fast enough. So I had blood clot in one of the chambers of my heart. The blood broke up and I had blood clots in my lungs. I couldn't breathe, came real close to dying, was in intensive care, fluid on my lungs, different. So this just happened. And this last incident was the straw that just broke my back, emotionally and physically. I ended up in the hospital with heart problems, and I've never had a heart problem or high blood pressure in my life. Now I have all of that in
Mr. Johnson,
1 month.
Mr. Johnson, definitely appreciate you jumping in and sharing your situation with towing. Just to give you a little background on who we are and what we do. So the Towing Task Force. So what our responsibilities are pursuant to statute. It's a 14-member body. Most of our positions are appointed by the governor's office and serve key roles to essentially voice, be the voice of different constituencies, maybe it's different communities or different interest groups. And what we do is we meet periodically and we discuss rates for towing carriers. That's mostly what we do. But I'm glad you reached out because what I can share with you is, based on the situation you described, one of my questions to you was going to be whether or not you'd filed a complaint with the Colorado Public Utilities Commission to discuss those issues. And if not, I was going to very strongly encourage you to do so. That's my state agency. I work for the Public Utilities Commission. I'm the section chief for transportation here. And this, based on what you've described, it certainly sounds like something we could look into for you. And I'm happy to provide you with that information for how to file such a complaint if that's something you have any interest in doing.
I'm definitely going to do that.
Okay.
I mean,
Let me give you the phone number for our
Mhm.
consumer affairs section. That's probably the best place to start.
okay, I'm ready.
It's 303
hmm
894 2070. That's our consumer affairs hotline. So feel free to call them at your convenience. And you can tell them everything you just told us. I don't know that there's anything we as a group can do to help directly just because of what our charge is pursuant to the legislature and the statutes that govern this body. But we definitely appreciate you sharing our stories and kind of giving us a glimpse of that other side on what some people are dealing with when they are engaging with towing carriers in regards to various services and things that are provided.
Was that 2070?
Yes, sir. 2070.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, well, I greatly appreciate it, and I appreciate y'all listening to me. I just kind of busted in. I didn't know. I hadn't even listened to any of what you guys talked about before. As soon as I got in, I raised my hand. I greatly appreciate y'all listening to me.
Not at
And
all. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for coming and thanks for participating. It's always good for people that are involved in this group to hear some of the personal experiences of consumers that are engaging with towing services out there. So we definitely appreciate your comments.
It's really unfair what I went through, and yeah, I just hope I can get some help. Thank you all, and y'all have a good day.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Have a nice day.
Yes, sir.
All right. So moving on to our discussion. So I kind of said everything I had about the, looking at other states and, comparing what they do versus what we do here in Colorado. And, again, it's something where I mean, it's helpful just to look at it and kind of see what can be incorporated in here. I think we've done the towing task force, previous iterations back in 2015 kind of laid the groundwork for most of that. And we haven't really at the commission level deviated from that much since it was put in place, back in 2015 or at least around there. But anyway, it's still a helpful exercise to kind of see what other states are doing. And it's nice to see that, some of the rates being charged in some of the other states like Illinois and, a couple others are actually pretty close to what we have here. So in regards to what they're charging and the different fee tiers, in fact, like in Illinois, I think it was, the price for storage for the larger CMB vehicles it's actually even more than we have here, like by quite a bit, I think. So, it's interesting to look at that. Did anybody else have anything they wanted to say in regards to, does anybody else have anything they wanted to say in regards to the other states and, what they may be doing or, things you've heard about or explored, in recent months, potentially? Any other comments on any of that? Captain Hahn.
Yeah, I don't know about any other states. I'd be happy to help reach out as well. It sounds like you hadn't heard anything back from Texas. I've got some decent contacts down there that I'd be happy to reach out and see if we can help figure out what Texas is doing. I mean, more than anything, just by way of comment, I think that's really good work. Nate, with the work he did there, I think it highlights the fact that there is no one size fits all, or there are no easy answers. Just given the variety of different things that states are doing. So I appreciate you putting that legwork in.
Yeah, sure. Appreciate that comment. And I agree with you. There really is no one size fits all. And I mean, there's so many different components to all this. What they're charging for insurance rates out in Massachusetts may be considerably different than what towing carriers are being charged here. And, same thing for, property costs, property taxes, fuel costs, even. I mean, all of it plays in. And, also, population size and, just the more state-centric and economic situation. All of it comes into play in these kinds of discussions. So yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. That one size doesn't fit all. And, I think we've done our best over the years to kind of create a situation that best fits our state and, is fair to the consumers while at the same time, not creating an overly, some kind of overt financial deficit for the towing carriers to get the kind of business they need to meet their costs. So it's always been a balancing act. But okay. Well, that's fair. So moving on, that kind of was, all I think I had, on the agenda for the, talking about other states. We can move on to item 5 on the agenda, which is just our open discussion. I know we already covered item 6, which was our public comments with Mr. Johnson. So we already covered that. But yeah, it's the remainder of the meeting is open discussion. Anything anybody wants to talk about. I know we've talked in a few subsequent or previous meetings about, the annual inflation adjustment. That is a new standard that the commission has been trying over the last couple of years, and the metric that is currently being used for that, which is just the CDOLA CPI figure, which is just kind of a flat consumer price index figure that has been being used and is currently being used. I know we'd had previous discussions about if there was maybe a better alternative to that. I don't think I've heard much in regards to what I mean. I know in our report last year we put exploring. I think that we had like 3 alternatives in that recommendation of other metrics that could potentially be used, but I don't know that I've heard anything beyond that recommendation other than it's something that could continue to be explored. Not sure if anybody had any additional thoughts on that or just anything else anybody else wanted to talk about. I know we're shorthanded today, so can't really handle any big ticket items, but it might be that way for a little while, just until we replace some of these positions and get some people reappointed to potentially fresh terms in their membership of this group. So it might feel a little bare bones for a while, but yeah, definitely could see some more people here today that are usually here for most of our meetings. So that happens sometimes. Any other thoughts anybody has on really anything at this point? Yeah, Mr. Conley.
How many members do we have currently after all their resignations?
9. So we still have yourself, Mr. Conley, Captain Hahn, Jim Howes, Michael Pierce, Greg Prunsky, Brandon Rich, Jeffrey Reister, myself, and Joyanne Rusha. The 5 resignations that we've unfortunately seen over the past handful of months is Nicole Bailey. She was our member for common interest communities, which is like HOAs and things like that. Andrea Chiribogaflor, Nicole Lawless. Both of them were holding the spot of they were 2 of the newer spots that were added 2 years ago for people to represent communities that may be disproportionately impacted by non-consensual towing. Trevor Forbes, who was our rep for non-consensual towers, also resigned, as well as Troy Hill, who was our member to represent a motor vehicle association who do business with towing carriers.
All right.
So those are the 5 vacancies.
I guess what I was getting at is if we only have 9 members, does that mean we have a quorum currently? Because wouldn't the quorum be 5?
And that's something, and John Roberts, if you want to reiterate this, because I think I asked this either in the last meeting or maybe it was the meeting before that, about if we have vacant positions, is the percentage of overall members to constitute a quorum also in turn reduced? And I think your answer was no.
You're right. My answer was no.
Okay.
So we can't approve the minutes. I was just getting at that. If
Well,
there was this here, we could have a quorum to approve the minutes and things like that. The little stuff.
Yeah, and I personally don't think it should work that way. I think if the membership, like if actual filled positions are have been vacated, I think the quorum percentage should go down personally. But if that's not the case, it's not the case, and that's just something we got to deal with. But I mean, yeah, we still have enough members to represent a quorum. It's just all of them have to be present at the same time for that to work. I think we have a one member wiggle room, and that's it. Because considering it's a 14-member body, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Roberts, but just 7, which is half of the membership, would not do it, but 8 would, correct?
Right.
Okay. So since we have 9 currently filled positions, we would have a quorum with a plus minus 1, if you want to call it that. So
We need 8 at a meeting to get anything done.
correct. So we were 3 short today, unfortunately. Like I said, Mr. Reister indicated he was going to show up, but that would still only get us to 7. Or wait, hold on. Sorry, 6. So we would need 2 more in addition to him. And again, the people who happen to be missing today are people who usually show up. It's just they didn't happen to show up today. It happens. And again, just a reminder to everybody. I know we're putting this in every meeting reminder or email we're sending out. But again, the statute does allow for you to appoint someone to come to these meetings in your stead if for whatever reason you can't make it. There is a statutory provision that you can, appoint someone and trust to come and essentially be part of this group. And, they can add their own voice on your behalf, which is fine. But, I assume they have, all the accompanying powers as you yourself as the member. You're essentially just designating them as your agent to come and attend the meeting in your stead. So I imagine that would count towards everything we would need it to count towards. So anyway, that is still an option for everybody. If something comes up and life happens, we understand. But yeah, for whatever reason you can't attend, just see if you have somebody available that could come and participate on your behalf. We only meet once a month, which isn't a whole lot. So I think that it's not quite the time sink as, other boards and commissions are. So, I think we should all do as much as we can to make sure that we're, attending these meetings. So, did you have any other thoughts, Mr. Conley?
No, that was pretty much it.
Okay. Did you have any thoughts on anything that, was discussed about the other states?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of shows, where they're at as far as price goes. Like the heavy, I noticed the heavy in most states are higher than we are here in Colorado.
Mm.
And those trucks have gotten astronomically expensive. So I can kind of see that, which is kind of interesting. I don't think we're too far out in left field here. I think we're pretty on par with most states. I think we're a little low in the heavier ranges, but I don't think we're too far off.
Gotcha. Yeah, it'll be interesting. And just FYI, I think I know we don't typically, we probably shouldn't talk about that right now. Let's just say there's been some talk of some additional towing related legislation going next year. We probably shouldn't talk too much about it because I think everything's kind of more in the informal stages right now, but we could see some stuff that could impact us or could impact the things we're looking at. So, just we'll be aware of it. And, if something gets introduced, next year and it's at that point public information, I think we can potentially discuss it a little more openly as long as it's related to, us and what we're doing. So that's a potential, a few months down the road. So we'll keep our ears open for those types of things. But yeah, it's a little different when, things are in the informal, behind closed doors talking phases. We don't want to breach any of that. So,
Well, just to give you insight, I'm turning the apple cart upside down.
okay. Fair enough. Well, and Mr. Conley, I know you've voiced some very strong opinions, over the years about, certain things that could potentially be done in, the non-consensual towing industry, which is what we talk about here. So, if that kind of stuff, if there's going to be those kinds of impacts, that then in turn affects what we talk about here, because again, that's kind of what the legislature has pegged us to do, is to, make recommendations to the commission on, what the appropriate rates are and kind of how that all is supposed to work. So,
Yep.
I think it is to a certain extent related. So yeah, I think that's fair for us to discuss, when that kind of stuff is out there for everybody to see. Okay, well, it's about 3:00. We're about halfway through our set meeting time. And again, I know we're a little short today, unfortunately, but it doesn't mean we can't, discuss other topics if anybody's so inclined. So anything else anybody's thinking of? Jim, did I see you raise your hand earlier?
I was just gonna ask, what the date is our next meeting, make sure I have that in the
Sure.
calendar, since we're on such a tight number for quorum.
Yeah, not at all. Let's. So we've typically been going the second Wednesday of
Okay.
each month. So for next month, that would put us at the 8th of November. If
Okay.
everyone's okay with that, we could probably also do the 15th if that works better for people. But I think we could do either or of those.
I'm fine with either one, so.
Anybody have any preferences on the 8th or the 15th of November? I'm fine for either. So if anybody has a strong preference one way or the other, we can accommodate that potentially.
I like the 8th.
Either work.
Sorry, I heard you say, John, you said that the 8th was okay. Did you say
Yes.
something, Captain On?
Yeah, either of those, the 8th or the 15th, both work for me. So
Okay.
I'm out of town on the 15th. I'm in town on the 8th.
Okay. All right. Well, that settles that. We'll go ahead and do the 8th then. All right. So yeah, that'll be our next meeting, which will be November 8th, regular time, 2 to 4. We'll go ahead and plan on that. Let me just make a little note here so that we don't forget. We'll go ahead and send the invite for that probably sometime before the end of the week. Our normal schedule has been to give a 2-week reminder and then a 1-week reminder, which hopefully you're all finding useful. Just to kind of let people know and remind people that it's coming. I know it's easy to, accept the invitation and then, next thing you know, it's the 2 weeks is over and it's tomorrow and oh no, I got something else now that I got to do. So yeah, I enjoy, being able to anticipate, the same kind of meeting every month. It just helps better with scheduling. You always know it's going to be there. So it's a little easier to plan around that. So. All right. Well, yeah, we'll go ahead and mark that. November 8th, 2 p.m. Would be our next meeting, which is 4 weeks from today. All right. Anything else anyone wants to discuss? And just FYI, I haven't heard anything yet about any upcoming rulemakings regarding rates. Again, my comments from before stand that could potentially happen anytime. We're at the commission, we're trying to wrap up the rulemaking from the House bill from last year. It looks like that's going to be happening potentially soon, but it's really up to the judge at this point. They'll issue the recommended decision when they're ready. I think they have 6 months to do it after the last hearing, so they still have plenty of time. But I think we'll see it sooner rather than later, maybe even sometime this month. So when those come out, we'll if you want to look at those, you can look at those. It doesn't really have much to do with rates, other than, for example, restricting the ability to charge a rate for a drop fee for specifically residential tows. But that's in the statute, so that's unavoidable, really. But really, I think that's really the only thing that really dealt much with rates, to my knowledge. I don't think there was much other than that. Just tweaking some of the GVWR categories because they didn't make sense. There was like a 1 pound dead zone that we had to eliminate, stuff like that, just little things. So, okay. Anything else?
Yeah,
right.
motion for adjournment.
I don't think you need a motion for that. I think we can just do it. And then we don't have a quorum to vote anyway. So thank you though, John. All right. Well, like I said, the next meeting is November 8th, 4 weeks from today, regular time, 2 p.m. We'll try to get that invite out before the end of the week. And then, like I said, we'll send everybody out the 2 and 1 week reminders like we've been doing lately. And yeah, like I said, if any of you are inclined to, reach out to contacts in another state, Captain Hahn, I know you offered, that would be appreciated before our next meeting, if that's possible. And then you can bring that back and see what kind of information we get from that part. And then, yeah. All right. Well, it's about 3:06. And I definitely appreciate you all being here today and engaging in discussion. I think we had some interesting topics discussed today, especially about the other states and kind of what they're doing. Just everybody just being aware of that, I think, can ease certain parts of thinking about this in terms of Colorado and what we're doing here. So I hope you all found it useful. I know I found it useful. So hopefully that kind of gets your mind in the right place on feeling more okay about what we're doing here and what we potentially could put in future recommendations to the commission. So, all right. Well, thanks everybody for attending. We'll go ahead and adjourn for now, and we'll see you in 4 weeks. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Nate.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nate.
Hadiji, you can go ahead and stop the recording now.
Okay, I will do that right now.